I was 18 years old, standing at the front door of the only house I had ever known, with a small bag in my shaking hands and a life growing inside me. My father wouldn't look at me. His words still echo in my mind, sharp and unforgiving. You are a mistake of my past, and now you've made another one. Get out. That was it. No hug, no tears, no goodbye, just a slammed door and the sudden realization that I was alone in the world, pregnant, terrified, and officially homeless. I had always believed that family was supposed to protect you, especially when you were at your weakest. My dad had raised me to believe in discipline, rules, and reputation. In our home, appearances mattered more than feelings. He was respected in the community, known as a strict but honorable man. I was his only daughter, his responsibility, his legacy. Or at least, that's what I thought, until the day my pregnancy shattered his carefully built image. When I told him I was pregnant, my voice barely worked. My hands were cold, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might faint. I expected anger, maybe disappointment, maybe even shouting. But I wasn't prepared for the disgust in his eyes. He didn't see his daughter anymore. He saw shame. He saw gossip. He saw his past mistakes reflected back at him, and instead of owning them, he chose to erase me. He told me I had ruined his life. That I had embarrassed him. That people like me didn't deserve support. When I tried to explain that I was scared and needed help, he laughed bitterly and said, "You should have thought of that before opening your legs." That sentence broke something inside me that day. It was the moment I realized I could cry forever and still get nothing from him. I left that house with nowhere to go. The father of my baby had disappeared the moment I told him the news. My phone had no missed calls, no comforting messages, no safety net waiting for me. That first night, I slept on a friend's couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had fallen apart so quickly. I was 18, pregnant, and already judged by everyone who was supposed to love me. The next few months were the hardest of my life. I bounced between friends, shelters, and cheap rooms where the walls were thin and the future felt thinner. I worked wherever I could, cleaning houses, washing dishes, standing on my feet for hours even when my back ached and my feet swelled. People looked at my belly and made assumptions. Some pitied me, others judged me silently. Very few helped. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, whispering apologies to my unborn child. I promised them I would do better. I promised I wouldn't fail them the way I felt my father had failed me. That promise became my fuel. Every insult, every closed door, every judgmental stare hardened my resolve. If my father thought I was a mistake, I would prove him wrong, not with revenge, but with success he could never deny. I started small. I learned skills online using free Wi-Fi at libraries. I watched videos on budgeting, online work, and personal development. I applied for every opportunity I could find. When one door closed, I knocked on 10 more. Slowly, painfully, things began to change. I found a stable job. Then another better one. I saved every extra coin, skipped meals, wore the same clothes until they were threadbare, all for one goal: independence. When my child was born, everything changed. Holding the tiny life in my arms, I felt a strength I didn't know I had. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was responsible for someone else's future. That fear pushed me harder than any insult ever could. I worked during the day, studied at night, and slept whenever exhaustion finally won. There was no one to rescue me. I had become my own hero. Years passed. Life didn't magically become easy, but it became purposeful. I moved into a small apartment. I built a routine. I earned promotions. I started dreaming again, real dreams, not desperate wishes. My child grew, laughing, curious, loved in a way I had once craved from my own parent. Every milestone felt like a quiet victory against the past that tried to break me. I never reached out to my father. Not out of pride, but out of self-preservation. I couldn't afford to reopen wounds that took years to heal. In my silence, I grew. In my absence, he lost control. And then one day, unexpectedly, life came full circle. I received a message from a relative I hadn't spoken to in years. My father was sick. He had been asking about me. He wanted to see his grandchild. Reading those words, I felt nothing at first. No anger, no excitement, just a strange calm. The power had shifted, and for the first time, I realized it. When I finally stood in front of him again, I wasn't the scared 18-year-old he had thrown out. I was confident, composed, and complete. My child stood beside me, holding my hand. My father looked smaller somehow. Older. Regret had etched itself into his face. He tried to speak, but his voice trembled. He apologized, quietly, awkwardly, like someone who had rehearsed but never truly understood the damage done. He told me he had been afraid of judgment, of losing respect, of repeating his own past mistakes. I listened without interrupting. And then I said something he never expected. I told him I forgave him, but forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and it didn't mean rebuilding a relationship. I didn't need his approval anymore. I had built a life without it. The look in his eyes said everything. He realized then that kicking me out hadn't destroyed me, it had freed me. The mistake he thought he erased had become his greatest lesson. And the problem he tried to hide had grown into a living proof of resilience standing right in front of him. Walking away that day, I felt lighter than I ever had before. Not because he was sick. Not because he apologized. But because I finally understood my worth had never been tied to his acceptance. I didn't do what nobody expected to hurt him. I did it to save myself. To anyone watching this who feels abandoned, judged, or labeled a mistake, remember this: your beginning does not define your ending. Sometimes being kicked out is life's brutal way of pushing you toward the person you were meant to become. I was 18, pregnant, and rejected. Today, I am strong, independent, and unbreakable. And that is something nobody, not even my father, ever expected.